How's everybody doing out there in this big, wide open world today? This is your world as I see it, coming at you in 5.1 surround sound. And today, I think I want to share um, some thoughts, some ideas. A friend of mine and I were having a conversation not too long ago about our world and the condition of it, and how we've watched it changed uh, over the years. And we theorized it, some of the possible reasons as to why. And in our conversation, the idea or the subject of Christianity came into play. It came into play because it is a theology that we have uh, based and built our society upon. We've passed many laws uh, using that theology, using that ideology, and it's important, I think, to get back to the roots of why we believe it. But knowing that I read my Bible and also knowing my view on the church today, as far as an organized religion and commercialized at that, he asked me what I would say if I were to give a sermon on a Sunday morning. I wasn't quite sure how to answer that. And quite frankly, it took me a little while to think about it, but I woke up this morning with it on my mind. And after a few cups of coffee and giving it some consideration, I think this is what I would say if I were to give a sermon on a Sunday morning. First, I would remind the audience that they are three-dimensional beings. They don't just consist of a body, but also of a soul and a spirit. The soul of a man and the spirit of the man are two different but equal parts, making two-thirds of the whole. They are intangible to the five senses. You cannot see them, you cannot taste them, you cannot touch them, you cannot smell them, you cannot hear them. But they do exist inside of each and every one of us. The heart of man, the soul of man is his heart. It is the conscious and the subconscious mind, his emotions, his sense of right and wrong. While the spirit of man is the spark that animates his body of clay. In and of itself has its own intelligence. It has been called many names throughout the centuries. And so far, the most accurate name that I could find for it is Ruah, which translated directly means Holy Spirit. I would tell them to look and consider at the smallest components and elements that work together to make life possible. And I would ask them to open their minds in the face of that artwork, that they are witnessing a form of intelligence that transcends our understanding, that it is by design, and that design, when studied, shows the true majesty of the one who imagined it. I would then supplement the idea that we are here by choice and not by chance, and that our lives are driven by purpose and not persuasion. Next, I would spur the imagination by suggesting that one read the Bible through the eyes of one who inspired its creation. To start in Genesis, and from the very first verse, change the format from which we read it from a third person narrative about God and his idea of creation to a first person narrative from God and his intent in creation. To do this is to find treasures of wisdom that are rarely uncovered in the pages and the passages that follow. But while there are no adequate words to express the miracle of the concept of life, or the grandeur and the splendor of its magnificence in design, the same God who announced his desire to create it also expressed his love for it. In the verbal expression of his love for it, We also get a glimpse into the idea that there is something in the eternal realms beyond our comprehension that is set not only to destroy it, but even challenged the Almighty to prove his love by action. Before initiating that action, God defined the problem he himself would fix in his demonstration. That problem is the heart of man. Through his prophet Jeremiah, in that book in the 17th chapter, God, God was recorded as saying, "The heart is deceitful above all things and is beyond cure. Who can understand it? I, the Lord, search the heart and examine the mind to reward a man according to his conduct and according to what his deeds deserve." I would then remind the people of the day God put his words into action and in the form best suited for the challenge. Because his creation was defiled by separating the spirit of the man from the heart of the man, God himself became a man with his own heart and spirit wired with as one with his mind and his body. He was given the name Emmanuel, which means God with us, and he is known to this day as Jesus Christ. This Jesus performed the impossible before the eyes of men repeatedly so that he would be heard when he would verify three important things. The first being that God is the Father and he is the creator, and by his command all things, including man, had life. It was given by his own design, his own authority, and his own will, and he alone is the owner and established its value from the beginning. Second, he gave us a glimpse into who we really are and who we are really supposed to be in relation to himself, calling us sons and daughters of himself. And such a title of royalty is not reserved for the body alone because the body does not exist by its own will. It exists because of the Spirit, which is the breath of life and is a part of God himself inside each of us. Third being that we are created to have a relationship with him in a way that not even the angels have a privilege. The concept that we are made for him and by him, that we are held together through him, and that we are made to reflect both the image and the character of the God who created all things is the truth of the matter. Everything else written is a supplement to those points. I would speak of the action that was louder than words because the action itself was the word spoken, that you are worth dying for. The act of God sacrificing himself in bodily form to pay for the penalty of the wrongdoing and defiling his creation was the only way to bring justice to it. I would remind the people that the entire earth shook on its foundations that day, and that people as far away as Greece wrote that the sky went black and there was a great earthquake on that day, and that it didn't just happen in Jerusalem. I would also speak of the way Jesus authenticated his authority as being God when 3 days later he walked out of the tomb in which he was buried, and that he alone had the authority even over death itself. He did it to establish the fact that he alone could and would restore the heart and spirit of man who he himself created. I would remind the people that true Christianity is not about the loud concert like approach to worship, nor is it about the feel good, rah rah, here's how to be a good person message that so many churches seem to be about in this day and age. No, true Christianity is about using the written word of the Bible best in the first person perspective as a mirror to reflect to ourselves the internal condition of the heart and the spirit, and to let God, who made all things, continue his process in the remaking and restoration. We acknowledge the brokenness of our hearts with rigorous self honesty. That Jesus pointed out in Mark 7 that the problems that plague mankind come from the broken moral compass in the heart of mankind, and that compass is able to be fixed if we would let him. I would remind the people that accountability is a theme in the Bible, and it is a serious point that ought not be understated in one's life. There will come a time and a day when we will give an account for our heart, its condition, its maintenance, and our actions and reactions as a result from either care or neglect of it. I would remind the people that because the Creator knows more about His creation than the creation itself, that the very same God who expressed and demonstrated His love also desires to extend forgiveness, grace, and mercy if we would allow Him to restore us to who He imagined we would be before He laid the foundations of the world. And the last thing that I would say to close the sermon is to question everything you see and everything you hear. We live in a world that has lost its moral compass. To march along blindly in the precepts of man's wisdom and self proclaimed morality is to set yourself up for ultimate failure. I would encourage the people, as sentient beings with their own conscience, to use their God given ability to think for themselves and not be caught up in the snares and issues of a world designed to fail. And I would challenge them, as well as the churches as a whole, to not learn how to be good people, but to learn how to be holy people, as that was God's intent from the beginning. Yes, this is what I would say if I were to give a sermon on a Sunday. It would be short and to the point, as it was now, but I hope it is something that challenged your conscious mind. I hope it is something that challenged your heart, and I hope that it is something that we can learn from. I hope everyone out here has a blessed and prosperous day.